Where are we? Okay, bottom of Kuf Daled Amud Aleph, 104a. We're about 4 lines above the wide lines. Just a very brief review, exactly what's necessary for today. The Mishnah says that the key idea of the Mishnah is if you steal something and you lie about it, then not only do you have to pay it back, but you have to bring it to media, right, to Modai. Go schlep 150 miles and go return it. The only exception that we saw was the explanation of Reb Shimon ben Elazar. As he explained in the Mishnah, it went something like this: that if the value of the item is less than the cost of the trip, right, then you're exempt from going to media. Instead, what do? So there's a court-appointed agent who receives it on behalf of the robber. Now, without going into too much detail, the Gemara pointed out this agent could be appointed either by the original owner or by the robber. This is sort of a favor that we're providing to the robber who wants to repent after he lied about it. Not only did he steal, but he also lied about it, and therefore we allow him to. If the original owner is far away and cannot be accessed, so therefore in that scenario we allow the robber to appoint a court-appointed messenger. So it's sort of, he requests, might be the better way to say it, a court-appointed messenger, and he gives it to that agent. Okay, so Mara says whether this is true is actually debate. This disagrees with another author. The Tanya we learned from Shimon ben Elazar. There's another explanation of Shimon ben Elazar. Aimer shliach bezin she'aso nigzal v'lo also gazlan. Also gazlan v'sholach halo v'notlas shalom yadoi potter. 1 second. Okay. Okay, Shimon Elazar says that if either the nigzal, meaning the original owner, or the robber himself make this appointment of the emissary of the court, then the robber is 1 second. Okay, if again in that scenario, if the item gets back to the original owner, then fine. The point of Shimon Elazar is that if it doesn't get back to the original owner, the robber would be liable. According to Shimon Elazar, the appointment of the emissary of the court must be made by both of them, by both the robber and the original owner, which is not like our Mishnah, which presumes that either one can request from the court the appointment of a shliach bezdin, an agent of the court. Okay. Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Elazar, the Amud Shavai, Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Elazar both say shliach shaso be'edim have a shliach. Okay, this goes back to the original Gemara we saw yesterday. They both say that if you have a messenger, an agent that's appointed with witnesses, it's a have a shliach. He's a messenger. What does that mean? He's a messenger. He's let's say I am a lender, right? And I appoint a witness. I appoint a shliach with witnesses to collect my debt. Then, as soon as you pay the debt to my messenger, the debt is forgiven. If it never actually gets to me, it doesn't make a difference. The entire Mishnah saying, and what about our Mishnah, where the Mishnah says specifically you can't give it to the messenger of the original owner. Right? The robber is trying to return it. The original owner sends a messenger to collect it. The Mishnah says, don't give it to him. You got to give it to him personally. Don't give it to the messenger. Go give it to him personally. That seems to contradict the statement of Rabbi Yochanan. The Gemara says, no, the first possibility is the Mishnah is just a emissary of convenience. So he sends him as an emissary, but not because he wants this agent to receive the money on his behalf. The original owner sends an agent not to receive the money on his behalf, only as a recommendation. Perhaps the reason why you're not returning it to him, he says to the thief, is because you don't have a way to get it back. Well, here's my agent, you can send it with him. But this agent was not appointed with two witnesses. And hence, if there is a liability that occurs to the stolen item during the period when the agent is carrying the item, the robber is still liable. Another possibility is, it's the guy's personal secretary. So also was not appointed with witnesses. Okay, now we switch tracks slightly. Rabbi Yehudah says the name of Shmuel. You do not send money with a sign. What does this mean? It sounds like it is what it sounds like. The guy appoints a messenger and gives him all sorts of secrets and codes. Right? So he walks into the guy's house, complete stranger. He says, I know that you owe this guy money. And you borrowed it under the third oak tree of the forest, He knows all the secrets. It's clear the guy is authentic. It's clear the only way he can know these secrets is if the lender gave him the secrets. He knew the specific details with tremendous amount of degree. Rashi says it could be even he sent him with a letter, he sent him with a signet ring, it was a signed letter. Even if their witness is signed on this letter. And again, this is a letter that has all the specifics in it. It can only have been written by the lender. Rabbi Yochanan says, no. If there are witnesses, then you can send it. Amri l'Shmuel ma'atakanta. According to Shmuel, how exactly do you ever collect debt with an agent? You have an agent who walks in with a letter, power of attorney, it's notarized. Not only that, it has all the specifics that are impossible to know except for the lender. So clearly you might think that the lender appointed him. Why wouldn't you be able to give it to this agent who claims to represent the lender? So Gemara says, yeah, there was a story. Here's a solution. Ma'atakanta, what's the solution? Kihadr of Abba. There's a story of Rabbi Abba. Have a masik zuzi b'Rabbi Yosef bar Kamma. Rabbi Abba lent out money, and the borrower was Rav Yosef bar Kamma. So Rav Safra, Sir Rav Abba told Rav Safra, who was traveling to Rav Abba the lender told Rav Safra who was traveling to the borrower's town, Rav Yosef bar Kamma, when you get to the town of where Rav Yosef bar Kamma lives, go collect it for me. When he gets there, Amalei Rava Bray, so Rava, the son of Rav Yosef, tells Rav Yosef, don't just believe him. Before you pay him the money, make sure he writes a receipt that effectively the debt that you have to Rav Abba is paid. Amalei, so he says, I never got this document yet. See, Rava says to Mihachi Zilbaresh. Make sure you get the document first before you pay him. Let's say if before he got around to doing it, Amalei Rava says to him, don't do it. It's not a good idea. I have a better idea. Okay. Don't even make do with a receipt. Why not? Dilma Ada Osiv Shachav Rabba. Rabba was frail and elderly at the time. Right? That was a story. So Rava was concerned that perhaps Rabba passed away, which apparently was not an unfair concern. Mm-hmm. So therefore, if Rabba passed away, then the agent is nullified. He no longer represents Rabba. And the debt isn't a debt to Rabba, the debt is a debt to the inheritors. So even if he does write your receipt, it doesn't make a difference. You're still liable for any travail, any event that might occur while Rav Safra is carrying the money, because perhaps Rav Safra doesn't represent the borrower anymore. One second. What was it? 1 second. The osis shachar Rabba. If Nafal is coming, ask me. It's about the Rabba lav klumul. The receipt of Rabba is meaningless. Amalei velamai tekantas. He says, okay, so what's the solution? I don't want to schlep to the town of Rabba to go repay the debt. I have a messenger here. What's the solution? So he says to him very simple. Zil ninolcha agav ara v'toat ksevlon hiskabalti. Very simple solution. What you should do is you should allow Rev Safra the agent, to acquire property and acquire the money that's in the property on behalf of Rabbi Abba. So now Rabbi Abba actually owns the money. Is that just an agent? He actually owns it. And now, and the receipt of Safra is now helpful. The Hadra of Papa, there was a similar story with her Papa. Have a masik tracer alpha Zuzi bechazal. Rav Papa had lent 12,000 zuz to the house of Chayzoi. So they did was 12,000 zuz. You can imagine it's probably a lot of money, right? 200 zuz was a salary for a year without it. So 12,000 zuz is obviously a lot of money. So what they do? They took asifa de besa. Asifa de besa is like a shed, right? You think a shed is probably not worth 12,000 zuz. Probably a lot less than that. So they took a shed. They put the money in the shed. It doesn't. It's machlokes whether it would have to be in the shed. It could be. It doesn't have to be in the shed. And they told the messenger, go acquire the shed, and with it you'll acquire the 12,000 zuz. And this way, Rav Papa now owns the money. He also, when Shmuel bar Abba came with the money, he went all the way out to Tovach to go greet him because he was extremely excited that he was getting paid back, millions of dollars basically in a loan. Okay, Nosan loy as a Karen. We go back to the Mishnah. Okay, this is an interesting Gemara. Let's review the Mishnah here. A guy lies about a loan. A guy steals and lies about stealing. He pays Karen and he pays what's called Chomesh. Right? Says the Mishnah a few things. The law of schlepping out to Madai is only for Karen. It's not for Chomesh. Karen is principal. Chomesh is a fifth, 20% addition, not included. You do not have to go back. First of all, the fact that Mishnah tells that to you means that what? You would have thought otherwise. You would have thought otherwise. You would have thought that it's not just the debt, it's also 20%. I'll explain that in a moment. Right. I'll explain that in a moment. What's unique about that idea? I'll explain it right now. What's unique to that idea is that, which is how the Gemara begins, is that Chomesh, generally speaking, we have a rule. If you pay what you damaged, then you are paying what we call money. You're making a financial payment. You're making whole whatever problem you caused, whether it was assault or battery, or whether it was damages or stealing or lying about things. You're making the guy whole. That makes sense. If you pay more than you damaged, almost always you're looking at what we call knas. Knas is a penalty. Like, for example, a thief of the night pays twice. That's a penalty. Chomesh obviously would seem to be a penalty too, because you're paying more than what you damaged. The fact the Mishnah would consider the fact that there's even consideration that you'd have to schlep out to Modai to give back the Chomesh indicates to us that the Chomesh is money, which is very, very unique. Probably the only exception I can think of, the general rule that paying more than you damaged is monetary payments. Moreover, the end of the Mishnah says the same thing. The Mishnah says that if you make a shavua on the Chomesh, right? So the guy steals $100, and then he swears and lies about it, and then he admits. So the court says, okay, you have to pay $120. So he pays the guy $100, and then he lies about the $20, right? So he said, how much does he have to pay now? 24, right? And then if he lies about the $4, he has to pay 80 cents. But then if he lies about the 80 cents, then we say that he does not have to pay the 16 cents, because 16, for argument's sake, 16 cents is less than the Shava Pruta. It may actually be more than Shava Pruta, but that's not. Okay, so clearly, Alma Chomesh M'baynu. Clearly, the Chomesh, the 20%, that is a monetary payment, not a penalty. It's not a fine. You think of a parking ticket, it's a fine, right? It's a penalty. You necessarily damage the city, the $40, whatever a parking ticket costs. Okay. So Alma Chomesh M'baynu. V'im mayis mishal milei yarshim. And if he dies, he has to pay it to his inheritors would have to pay the penalty. Utnanami, and the Mishnah says as well. The guy returns, so we said $100, right? The guy returns the 100, lies about the 20. He had already lied about the 100. Now he lies about the 20, he pays 24. He lies about the 20 again, he pays $20.80. Okay, Nosen is a Karen Mishbal Chaimish, or Mosef Chaimish al Chaimish, Harimosef Chaimish al Chaimish, Alma Chum Shemainahu. Clearly, this indicates to us that a fifth is a monetary payment. Tanya Nami, and we have another Bryce that says similarly. Somebody who steals and lies, and then he dies, presumably he admits also. His inheritors pay 120%, the principal plus 20%. And they are exempt from a sacrifice.
If there's an object involved rather than money,
it would be the monetary equivalent.
you just try to do monetary equivalent.
Yeah. So if it was a car, then you would evaluate the car, and it'd be 20% of the car.
They didn't have too many antique things or paintings. Yeah, right. So
We didn't get to that. It's
things that might be hard to value.
yeah, we might be more above Mitzvah above Basra. There is a lot of Talmudic discussion of things that are harder to value.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we've already gotten to some hard things like evaluating pain. It was a pretty complicated one. Okay, so the Gemara asks as a question, and the Gemara really is setting up the question. Do inheritors have to pay their father's fifth? I'll ask you a question. When is it the case that you do not pay a fifth for your father's robbery? In a scenario where he or his father did not make an oath. How do we know that if the inheritors or the father or both made an oath, you would still be exempt from paying the fifth? It's being paid for that which you stole, or oshak is another term for stealing. Exact differences we've discussed before. Okay, and he didn't steal, meaning the inheritor did not steal. So even if the father or the kids or both lied under oath about the robbery, they do not pay a fifth. Now this seems to be a clear contradiction to the previous Gemara. The previous Gemara indicated that the fifth was a monetary payment, and the inheritors are fully obligated. It seems to be a contradiction. So Amar of Nachman says, Loi kasha, kansha hoida, kansha loi hoida. Depends if he admitted or if he did not admit. Okay, if the father admits while he's still alive, so then the payment of a fifth is already valid immediately, while the father is still alive, and the inheritors must pay it. If the father dies without admitting it, then the fifth payment is not made by the inheritors. So the Gemara says, okay, Eloi hoida, if he didn't admit, karanami loi mishalom. So he shouldn't even have to pay the principal. The father isn't admitting to lying, and neither is the son, presumably. If you'll tell me they don't have to pay principal either, the fact that Bryce indicates that you're only exempt from a fifth tells me that you do pay the principal. Clearly, there was an admission. Although if there was no admission, how would it be possible to pay the principal? And the Bryce talks about this specifically. When do you pay Karen, the principal, on your father's robbery? When I would think that maybe you only pay the principal when you and your father made an oath. If, however, it's let's say either one made an oath or neither made an oath, even if nobody made an oath, you still have to return the gzeila, the principal. Why? Because Talmud Leimer gzeila v'oishek. Gzeila v'oishek. Gzeila means a stolen object. Gazal means that you stole it. Gzeila means the object was stolen. Now, whether they made an oath or not makes no difference. If the object is stolen, it was stolen. Whether or not you made an oath about it. And therefore, it must be returned as is. So clearly, principal is being returned. Chaimish is not being returned. Well, if there's no admission of guilt, they're claiming they didn't steal anything, then presumably they're not returning anything. Not the principal and not the fifth either. How is it possible to have a scenario where they must return the principal, but not the chaimish, when the chaimish was otherwise eligible? Okay, 1 second. Okay, the Gemara finishes off Aveda upikodin if it's a lost object or it's a pikadon, an object that was given to him to watch, yesh Talmud, then we have a similar rule. So the Gemara says, what does this mean? The Yosef Rav Huna was discussing this brisa, and he says, Amar le Rabba Bray yesh Talmud ka'amar mar or yesh Talmud ka'amar mar. What exactly did the brisa say? Did the brisa say yesh Talmud, meaning that it's from the same verse we also learn you have to return an object that was given to you to watch, or a lost object that was found? It's learned from the same source, Asher Gazal. Hagzela, meaning the item that was stolen. Similarly, if you talk about an Aveda, the item that was lost, that also has to be returned. Because an item that was watched also has to be returned. It's also learned from the same verses. Or he said simply that they have to pay it, meaning that it's obvious. It doesn't need to be learned from a verse. Kids need to return these items. So he said to him, Yesh Talmud, meaning we learn it from the verses. And it is learned from the verses. We learn it from the fact that Torah has to write Hagzela Asher Gazal. That's a repetition. Hagzela Asher Gazal, the item that was stolen. I'm sorry, the stolen item that was stolen would be the right way to say that. Hagzela, the stolen item, Asher Gazal. 5 lines on the bottom of the page. 104b. The stolen item that was stolen is obviously superfluous, right? If it's a stolen item, obviously it was stolen. So the fact that the Torah repeats itself, that indicates to me that if the child has a stolen item, whether or not it's his fault, or he lied about it, or didn't lie about it, or his father lied about it, or didn't lie about it, he still has to return it. And similarly, it would be true if it's the father inherited him a lost object, meaning he found somebody else's lost object, or he had somebody else's object that was being watched. What? Oh, we'll get to that in a moment. We still haven't resolved that. We haven't resolved the original question. Meaning, what is a scenario where you must return the principal, but you are exempt from the fifth? But otherwise, the son is liable for the fifth. Now, the Mishnah says the son has to pay a fifth. The Brisa says the son is exempt from a fifth, but liable in principle. How do we resolve this contradiction? Still back to the original question. Okay, so more.
Fifth on this one, Rabbi.
Okay, so Gemara says no. What happened was, where the father admitted that he lied, so the father pays a fifth.
Okay.
And if the father dies, the son is obligated to pay that fifth as well. Monetary payment, straight monetary payment. However, if the father did not admit to guilt, but the son did admit, and the son admitted to either his father lying, or he lied about it, or both lied about it under oath, then the son would be exempt from a fifth. Okay, well, why? If he made an oath, maybe he should have to pay a fifth too. What? The stolen item is not extant, meaning it was, let's say, grain, and it was consumed. So he lied about the grain, and the grain is consumed. So Gemara says, then how exactly are you returning the principal? So Gemara says, okay, the key idea here is if you steal something, then your land is obligated, the man's land is obligated to repay the debt. The deceased man's land, property, his estate. Okay, so the idea here is the stolen property is no longer around, and the stolen item is no longer around, the stolen grain, let's say, but the property is obligated to repay the debts. Okay, so what? 1 second. Okay, Rashi erases the next few lines for good reason. So move to the top of Kuf Hayam and Aleph. 1 second. And we are at okay.
A leaf ahead here.
Just one line. I'm just going with Rashi's Gersa. So the last Rashi on the page, first Rashi on the next page, Kuf Hayam and Aleph pulls out this line. So I'm just modifying the Gersa. It's on the first line of the Gemara. If that's the case, well, so he owes you property. Fine. So pay a chaimesh, pay a fifth of the property. So you stole $1,000, the father stole $1,000 of grain. Okay. The grain is eaten, consumed. The kid lies about the grain under oath. Now that the father's estate owes the original owner $1,000. The kid lies under oath, so let him pay $1,200 of the father's estate. What's the problem? So Gemara says, what's going on here is that the principal debt here is property. And the reason for this is because a movable property, if a son inherits his father's debt, that debt is not collected from the father's movable property, the father's metallic one. It's only collected from real estate. And we do not make an oath on real estate. And therefore, the son is exempt from paying a fifth. So let's explain. Under regular circumstances, if somebody steals, Reuven steals, okay, all of Reuven's assets are liable. Whether it's going to be, let's say Reuven steals grain, well, you can pay back the grain itself, ideally. Let's say he consumes the grain, then his $100 in the bank account or in his pocket are also obligated to repay the debts. It's not just property. Property, obviously, is always the easiest to collect. You always have the strongest ability to collect from, for the simple reason that it can't be moved. But the debt is, he's obligated to pay from even movable property. Therefore, the oath that he makes is not an oath exclusively on property. A regular thief's oath is not on property because his movable objects are also obligated to repay the debts. However, the oath of a thief of the inheritor of a thief. So once you inherit your debt to your kids, only real estate is indebted. The rest of your assets are not indebted. The guy, the thief, right? He steals the grain, $1,000 worth of grain, eats the grain. Now his property is indebted. He dies. Only his real estate is indebted. If he had a nice silver collection, he cannot collect from that.
Tell me again, why not? Why is movable stuff is not on the chopping block? Why this is actual land?
So this is a fundamental question, which is really, is debt inherited in the first place?
Yeah, that's a good question.
And the answer to that is, it is, but only to the extent that it's on real estate.
Well, I hear that. I'm just wondering why that distinction is made in the first place.
Yeah, so the answer is that debt isn't really inherited. The answer is that there's a commandment for the children to repay their father's debt. So it's a quasi-inheritance. It's sort of an indirect inheritance.
So there's
The estate
for the heirs to repay the debt, but it doesn't automatically apply to movable property.
So the application of that halachic law is limited to real estate and not to actual.
Okay, I kind of.
So it's not really that the debt is inherited by, it's really that the kids have an obligation to pay the debt. It's the kid's obligation. Now, obviously, the indebtor, the creditor has a right to use the kid's obligation to actually collect. It's not like the kids can ignore their obligation. It's like between us and God, like we'll take care. No. But it's a financial obligation, but it's not a direct obligation. That's why, sort of an indirect way, and that's why it's only in real estate. Okay, as an important aside, we've noted this a few times in the past. Since the time of the Geonim, this law no longer applies. In the modern day, if somebody has debt, not only are their real estate assets, but also their movable assets are also indebted. The estates inherited as all assets of the inherited estate are indebted whether they're movable or not.
Debtors come before heirs.
Correct. And this is true even on movable items, unlike the Talmud. This is a decree of the Geonim.
Makes sense.
Okay. I guess there was a tremendous need at the time. No one's paying their debts, so okay. Fine.
We're indebted to you for enhanced understanding, Rabbi.
Okay. Rava Omar. Okay, so this is a simple resolution, right? So we're basically saying is that there's a technical reason here, a technicality, why the children are not paying a fifth. Why? Because the children's oath is an oath on property. And on property, you can't make an oath. So the children can never really lie under oath because they can't really make an oath in the first place. And if they did, the oath isn't valid. You don't make an oath on on real estate. On real estate. And a kid making an oath on his father's debt is an oath on real estate, which isn't a valid oath, whether he made it or not. And therefore, he can't pay a fifth because he can't lie under oath, because he can't make an oath in the first place. because the oath doesn't exist on real estate. Make sense? So the truth of the matter is kids have to pay a fifth. But also it's true that a kid can't make himself liable for a fifth by making an oath, because he can't make an oath because the concept of an oath doesn't exist.
Oh, okay. Oh,
So the truth of the mission is exactly accurate. Kids inherit the fifth, it's monetary payments. And technically speaking, there's an exemption that the child, an inheritor cannot make himself liable for falsely lying about his father's stolen object, because he just can't make an oath, because the oath doesn't exist in that type of
but he
arrangement.
does still have the debt, yeah,
Correct.
Yeah.
He has to pay the principal, but not the fifth.
but not the fifth.
No, he has to pay the principal because hagzela, it's a stolen item, got to give back. Okay, Rava says, it's another simple, this is a very simple solution. What happened was his father's assets were distributed amongst people. So I don't know, let's say his father had what's that business where you hand somebody over to something to sell? Yeah, but when you hand it over, you still own it. Consignment. Thank you. Consignment. So his father had expensive items on consignment everywhere. Okay. So Karen Mishalem, 1 second. 1 second. Hold on. I'm sure that's right. Okay. Now, of course, these items on consignment were stolen. So, right, the guy was a good robber, and he was selling in the pawn shop business. Right, he gave all his expensive prizes to the pawn shops, and he had it on consignment. So now what happens? So now the money here, the principal still exists, right? The principal's in the pawn shop. However, the kid might not know about it. Even if he does know about it, it's not really in his domain at this point. It's in the pawn shop's domain. So mufkez be'acherem, kerem shalom le'isa. You have to pay the principal because you have the principal. The principal still exists. When he lies about it, well, he doesn't actually lie about it because we don't really know if he's lying about it. It's on consignment. Maybe the kid doesn't know about it.
Mhm.
So the truth of the matter is that there really should be a chaimish also for the kids. If the kid lies about the father steals a silver item, right? So he steals a silver menorah, candelabra. And then the kid lies about it, he has to pay a fifth. True, and he has to return the candelabra because candelabra still exists. At this point, that's not real estate. Candelabra is extant, you have to return it. So you could make an oath and you'd have to pay it back. However, if the candelabra is under consignment, we don't really know if the kid's lying. Maybe he doesn't know about it, that it's under consignment. So therefore, he'd be exempt from an oath. Again, another technicality. Exempt from penalty of the oath. Because it's perhaps he was good, he's well-intentioned. Okay. Let's begin the next Gemara. It's an interesting Gemara. It starts on topic and quickly veers right off topic. So Amar Pabel. Chotzni Pasha Pruta B'Karen. Okay. Okay, so now we get this is a lot of fun. So basically, what happens here? You have a guy, he steals an item, right? Let's say he steals grain. It's a good example. He steals, for argument's sake, he steals $10 worth of grain. For argument's sake, we'll say it's a 5-pound bag, right? 5-pound bag, $10 worth of grain, it's $2 a pound. What happens? So the guy forgave everything except for an ounce of grain. And for argument's sake, an ounce of grain is less than a shavu pruta. Right? It's less than a quarter. 1 ounce of grain. So you don't have to bring that ounce of grain to Madai, to media. Amar Papa, so Rava says, no. If the grain was entirely consumed and I forgave the guy for $9.90, then he doesn't have to take that last dime and bring it to me to media. But if the bag of grain is still extant, still around, and there's an ounce of grain left in the bag, that ounce of grain he has to go bring it to me. Together?
There an attitude towards the physical remain versus the financial one?
The difference between the physical remainders and a financial obligation.
I see.
Why? Chayshinan, because this is the item as it's stolen, Chayshinan Shemet Yakar, we're concerned that maybe the price of grain will increase and the ounce of grain might be worth more than a quarter, and then you'd have to return it. Obviously, this isn't true with money. We're never concerned that money will be worth more than money. Obviously, if it's money, it's money. Dime is going to be worth a dime. Okay. Yeah, fair enough. Ikeda Amri, another version of this. Amr Papa, Loishn Exel Kayamas, Loishn Engzel Kayamas, Eina Tzarech Leilach Akrav. The second version of Rav is it doesn't make a difference. An ounce of grain does not have to be returned, whether it's an ounce of grain or whether it's a dime. Same thing, does not need to be returned. We are not concerned. Maybe it will increase in value. Okay, now of course we get to the fine lines here. Amar Rava says, Gazal shalosh agudis b'shalosh prutis. He stole 3 bundles. Okay, for argument's sake, let's say he stole 3 bundles of scallions. Okay, b'shalosh prutis. Each bundle cost a quarter. V'huzlu. Now it went down. V'amdu al shtayim. 3 bundles for 50 cents. Im hichser lo shtayim. If he returns 2 of the bundles, chayav l'hachzul acheres. He has to return the 3rd bundle as well. The tuna, we have a brice that supports this. Goes al chametz for overall of a Pesach. He stole chametz, and chametz has gone through Pesach. In that case, the chametz is prohibited to derive benefit from that chametz. So Amar lo, you tell him harei shalach lefanecha. Here is what's yours in front of you. Okay. Haima de isabeini halasabeina avgab the hashlab ma'ina who keeping the mikar ma'ina who boy shlumi. Okay. The key idea here is as follows. So you stole 3 bundles for 75 cents. Now the 3 bundles are worth, now they're 2 bundles for 25 cents. So you owe the guy about 37 cents now. You have to return all 3 bundles. 2 is not enough. And what's the proof of this? Let's say I stole a bag, Reuben steals a bag of cereal before Pesach. Cereal is chametz. Okay, and then he keeps it for Pesach, which prohibits the box of cereal. He actually has to return the box of cereal, even though, let's say the box of cereal was destroyed after Pesach. How much does he owe him? I don't know. What does a box of cereal cost? $3.75, right? So he has to pay him $3.75, despite the fact that the actual box of cereal is 0. Can't use it. Doesn't make a difference. You still have to return him the box of cereal. Similarly, if you steal the 3 bundles and one of them, keeping the mikar ma'ina who boy shlumi hachanami avgab the hashlo loy shava pruta. Keeping the mikar have a shava pruta boy have a shava pruta. You still have to return it. Okay, stop here. Yeah, I get a whole bunch more of these fine scenarios.
Oh,